Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of the Wise Guys podcast. My name is John Tortorelli with my two co-hosts, Brandon Capizzello and Justin Ray. Justin's back in the podcast. How are we doing, Justin?
Yes, sir, man. I'm repping the Baltimore Orioles today from my little ice cream cup that I had at the game the other day.
Dude, I loved those when I was a kid, man.
Dude, man, I collect these. I have an O's one, a Yankees one, a Mets one. I believe I have a Red Sox one somewhere in the abyss in my closet. But I'm feeling good, guys. I missed.
Put it up, John.
Come on, John. Come on.
Avengers is set. Let's go.
I was having some connectivity issues there. Last time I was at the ballpark, I had a different type of cup and it was dripping all over my pants. So that wasn't really a good experience for me. The Yankees, though, had a pretty good game. Aaron Judge had 2 homers against the Tigers.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to start things off with the biggest news in the NBA. On today's forecast in Brooklyn, New York, Kevin Durant is staying after he issued a long request to the Brooklyn Nets. He will not return unless the coach and the GM is hired. They called his bluff, and he is returning for a 3rd season in New York. This was the end game. Let's not pretend any of these teams that Kevin Durant could have went to for what these organizations would have had to have given up for KD would have been a better situation than this existing Nets roster. Now, I do think there's some flaws in this team, don't get me wrong. Justin, you're from New York. I'm going to kick it to you. You're higher on the Nets as well. How are you feeling about this Kevin Durant news? Is this team going to actually get out the first round next season?
So one, I'm happy that this is finally over. Like, we finally can say KD is staying in Brooklyn. I actually had a talk yesterday with my cousin Timothy, big time Nets fan. And I was like, man, I kind of feel bad for you guys. You guys must just feel like exhausted with this at this point. He was like, dude, I really don't even care anymore. Like, what did he drag us through this whole circus for what? For what? For him to just end up staying. Yep, now we got him for another 4 years. What's to come next offseason? Watch there be more drama. It just seems like, wow, yes, keeping KD in the fold keeps this team in contention. And I've said this over and over again to you guys, this team can win a championship if they're all out there. If they're healthy and they're playing together and they have enough time to build that chemistry. I think the goal is, him and Kyrie need to play at least 50 games together in the regular season, build some chemistry, stay healthy going into the postseason. And I think Brooklyn could be a top 3 team in the East this year. If not top 1, I'll go that far.
Regular season?
So I'm going to one guy you left out, Justin, is Mr. Ben Simmons, too. I think he needs to be a part of that
Correct.
game, at least minimum. So,
Oh my God.
Obviously, what do I think about the situation and where I see the Nets placing, right? The situation is, I don't even know what to say at this point because, I mean, if you got the viewers, if you guys have followed along, I've always said that I believed Kevin Durant was going to get traded. He made the trade demand. This is a player-friendly league. The players run the league basically for now. We'll see how the next year plays out. I I just thought that he was going to get traded because of the bridges he burned, especially with the latest the report before the Memphis Grizzly ones, the Memphis Grizzly one, the one where Shams reported that they had a sit down meeting and KD told the owner that he wants Sean Marks and Steve Nash gone. I thought at that point I was like, okay, well the bridges have just been burned. Like there's no way he's coming back. And you know what? It's kind of been slapping us all in the face. Like it's been right there in front of us. He was going nowhere because we've talked about it before. And I think everybody has talked about it to nauseum. Where the hell was he going? What trade package was valuable enough for Joe Tsai and Sean Marks to say this is an acceptable deal for Kevin Durant? There were none. There were good deals, but they weren't good enough. And I'm not saying get equal value for him because you're never going to get equal value when you're trading a player of that caliber. You're just not going to get the equal or better value. You're always going to get shortchanged in some way, shape, or form. Like obviously the Pelicans deal, that wasn't really a deal, but that people made up and stuff. I guess you would call them mock trades or whatever. That was a solid deal. The Jaylen Brown one was good. Actually, that was probably the best one out there. Denver Nuggets never really got traction, but that could have been a solid trade if they, paired like Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon with some first round picks. That could have been a little bit enticing. Miami and Phoenix were really never going to get any real traction because they just didn't have the assets. And with the restrictions, John's touched on it, having Ben Simmons on the rookie deal, not being able to, yada yada. So it's been right in front of our face the whole time. He was going nowhere, so of course he's going to stay. So now he's back. They got him. Kyrie opted in. Ben Simmons, from reports, is rampant and ready to go, and he wants to prove all his doubters wrong.
Can you talk about Ben Simmons?
We'll get into it. They still have Seth Curry, who's a sharpshooter, Patty Mills, who can knock down big shots. Some Nicky Claxton's all right. They've got some old veterans that are. I mean, they added T.J. Warren, who's going to come off the bench and be a solid contributor if he comes back healthy. They traded for Royce O'Neal, who's a veteran defender.
A first-round pick.
What was that?
They traded a first-round pick for a guy that helped lead to Utah's demise last year. But
yeah, I mean, I think they just saw value that he's a veteran, he can defend, and that's kind of just what they saw at it about that. So where I see the Nets, I think I've already touched base on it. I mean, they are a top 4 team. They're a top 4 team in the East. With that roster, the top 4 team. That's inarguable. And anybody who says otherwise is an idiot and doesn't know basketball.
It is arguable top 4 team. Between
it's
them,
arguable.
Philly, and Toronto,
it's arguable.
They did not win a single playoff game last year.
It's arguable. Did they have Ben Simmons?
No.
Was the chemistry destroyed? Was the chemistry destroyed throughout the season with Kyrie and KD?
I'll add to that, they also did not have Joe Harris, and they did have a healthy Seth Curry. He'll be coming off ankle.
That's all fine and dandy. None of those guys are on Ben Simmons level, though.
Okay, let's talk about Ben Simmons. They lost Bruce Brown, who was one of their 3 best players last 2 postseasons for them.
Bruce Brown, dude. Ben Simmons is a first-team All-Defense and All-Star caliber player.
He was first-team All-Defense 3 years ago, 2020. We have not seen Ben Simmons play NBA basketball since June 20th, 2021.
So are you willing to stand on that you don't think Ben Simmons is going to be a high-level defender when he comes back?
I think he will be, but as NBA fans, we're overlooking the fact Ben Simmons has something going on. Mentally, he doesn't seem to be in the right headspace, whatever it may be, and he doesn't seem to handle the pressure particularly well in the postseason. People talk about the Atlanta series.
Any argument from me about that, John?
We all look at the Atlanta series because the last basketball he played, but that's not the only postseason series where teams left him open, and offensively, him just sitting in the shallow area, the dunker spot, was ugly. I think back to his first playoff appearance in 2018 against the Celtics, where they lost in 5 games to a Boston team that had a rookie Jason Tatum, a second-year Jaylen Brown. That series was bad, and the 76ers fans at the time said, he's a rookie, we'll build off of this. But he's never built off of his game. He's coming off back surgery, and there is a mental block there in the offensive end where this guy, especially late in games, he can't play off Nick Claxton. Neither of those two can make a foul shot. And defensively, yeah, he can guard 1 through 4, but in Philadelphia, whether it was Doc Rivers and Brett Brown not putting him in the position to play a small ball 5 role, or him physically not wanting to do that, we haven't seen him play the center spot. And this team does not have a center right now. Nick Claxton is not a solution. We've seen he's a solid defensive big, but overall, he's not what you're going to need in the postseason when Al Horford may be cooking you up some games. That is the concern with Brooklyn. Ben Simmons is going to replace Bruce Brown, in theory, in Bruce Brown's role. But we've seen Bruce Brown be a perfect fit with KD. We've seen him make 3-point shots, defend at a high level. Now, Simmons has more upside. He's 6 inches taller and a much better playmaker with the ball in his hands. But we can't deny the fact that there's so many questions with this guy coming in that, in theory, doesn't work.
Okay. No, I get your points, and I'm not arguing the mental blocks. He's coming off back surgery. I'm not arguing that. The only thing I said is that from reports, and specifically Stephen A said he spoke to him in person, and you can take that whatever you want to take that. If you don't trust Stephen A, then you don't trust Stephen A. That's fine and dandy. I trust Stephen A's reporting. He talked to him, and this isn't even really reporting. This was a face-to-face conversation that he had with Ben Simmons. And he said Ben Simmons is raring to go. He wants to prove all his doubters wrong. So I'm going to take him at his word. He wants to do this. I'm not saying he's going to come out and shoot 40% from the three. I'm not even saying he's going to come out and shoot 35 or 33%. He's probably not going to be a good three-point shooter for the rest of his career, but that's fine. He's a first-team all-defensive player, which is highly valuable in this league, especially the small ball era we are in, where, yes, you will see a Joel Embiid and a Jokic. He can – I'm not going to say he can guard Giannis, but you know what I mean. Like, he matches up pretty physically wise. He matches up pretty well with Giannis. So really, it's Jokic and Embiid that you got to worry about. And we've known about Embiid's health down the stretch. Is he even going to be there? Or is he even going to be 100%? Jokic, he'll be there. But again, that's just one team. Ben Simmons can basically play a guard 1 through 5 with every other team. Again, he gives very high level passing ability and playmaking. He has passing vision. He does.
In transition. In the half court, this dude can't run a pick and roll because you said he's probably never going to be a good shooter. He's a non-shooter. And
so
that's
you
your
think
point
him
guard,
and
de facto?
KD or him and Kyrie running a pick and roll won't be dominant?
If he is the roll man and Kevin Durant's the ball handler, I think that could work. We haven't seen that, though.
I think either way.
No, because if I'm a defender and Ben Simmons is coming off of a ball screen, I'm just double teaming Kevin Durant. I'm letting him take a 15-foot jumper. You know, like Ben Simmons, if he can make that midi,
he's going to drive, and then
he'll
somebody's
make it.
going to have to suck in, and then a shooter's going to be open.
All right, so I got a question for you, Jay, because your jaw dropped when I said they
That
can be
was
a top
insane.
3 team or even top 1. I'll die on that hill. Brandon said they were a top 4 team. Not even debate. Not even a debate.
Mm-hmm.
You said it is a debate. So realistically,
let's get into that.
Look at the top 5 teams in the East. Does Brooklyn stand in that?
We have to see him put it to practice first before we just nonchalantly say you don't know basketball if you don't have Brooklyn in your top 4. Look, I think the theory of this team is really nice. It looks nice and it sounds good with Seth Curry and Joe Harris. But I was saying it before, both of those guys are coming off of ankle surgery. And take it a layer beyond that, Joe Harris in the playoffs, he's had games where he's disappeared. Seth Curry, while he's one of the best shooters of all time, he's basically a black hole on the defensive end. And he's not really providing a whole lot of value outside of that. So this Nets team, in 3 years, has had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving for 44 games. Now, I know KD had his redshirt season, but in 2 years, that's 22 games. Now, I know Kyrie had he wasn't available last year to start the season because he didn't get vaccinated. But Kyrie Irving's injury prone. Kevin Durant can't play 55 games as number 1, 40 minutes a night just to get this team into a top 4 spot. It's just unrealistic. Brooklyn last year started as the number 1 seed, but his body at his age, while his game should age gracefully, when you're 7 feet like that, man, all those lower body injuries can just pile up with that type of workload he's given some nights.
I don't know. I don't know about Justin. And if he wants to clarify just real quick, because I want to attack some of John's points. I'm not saying they'll even be a top 4 team in the regular season record-wise. I'm saying talent ability and where they can be in the playoffs, they are a top 4 team, and that's inarguable.
But talent's not enough in the playoffs. Every team's talented. What is going to take over the top?
Who else can compare to a Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and a Ben Simmons on talent level?
Well, ask Boston that went last year.
Okay, that's one team. Name me another.
Yeah, but that's a team that has a ton of talent too.
Time out. Let's really go into that.
Do the Bucks not have talent?
AD or Jason Tatum?
I'm taking Jason Tatum.
You're shot.
Well, I know why. Kevin Durant might be a better player, which I think. But if I have an NBA team, I would rather have 75 games Jason Tatum than 55 with Kevin Durant.
We're not talking. Don't
but that's how you have to look at this.
You're being slick.
Availability and durability account and what is the better player.
Slick. You do this. You're being slick. I asked you a direct question. Who's better?
But that
in the playoffs. That's
not what it comes down to.
I don't care. Forget the regular season.
Kevin Durant was terrible last year in the Boston.
Who's better?
Seasons.
Who's the better player?
Better.
Kevin Durant has more talent. Yeah, is that what you want me to say?
Okay,
But
All right,
that is
John,
not
John,
enough in
stop
the
there, stop
NBA
there, stop there,
playoffs.
stop there. That's one. Kyrie Irving at his height of powers or Jaylen Brown?
Okay, Kyrie is one of the 3 most skilled players in the league. I'm not discrediting that.
Okay,
Kyrie.
now let's keep going down the line. Ben Simmons or Marcus Smart?
Honestly, I would rather have Marcus Smart.
Okay, I mean that's
That's
kind of
debatable. I wouldn't
close.
argue.
That's kind of a
Because
closer one, but
look at what Marcus Smart brings as a leader, a communicator. He is not soft. I'm not trying to call Ben Simmons soft, but I question his mental fortitude. I don't question Marcus Smart's toughness. When he's hurt, he's playing through that. When Ben Simmons is hurt, he's not playing.
all right.
If his
But
back
John,
hurts, if he has to undergo back surgery, he's not playing through
yeah.
that.
All right,
Marcus Smart
John.
is.
But again, we're projecting here. We're projecting. These are all hypotheticals. We're all hypotheticals.
No, we're basing this
yes,
off what we've
anybody
seen.
can
This
go
isn't a
down.
hypothetical.
Anybody can go down. LeBron was an Iron Man for 17 years and he went down. Anybody can get injured. Anybody at any given time. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Marcus Smart, Ben Simmons, everybody can go down.
LeBron James.
We're projecting.
Stop
I understand.
LeBron James was
probability-wise-
35 years old, coming off of 8 straight finals appearances. That plays a role in the player breaking down. So we're not comparing that to Kevin Durant.
That. I'm not arguing that point. My point was that people get injured and it can happen at any given moment. Because LeBron's wasn't even, he got injured on a play like he came down from a dunk. It was a freak accident. Somebody dove into his leg going for a loose ball. That can happen to anybody on the court. Anybody. Nobody's. So
that was after LeBron's groin injury.
Again, I want to get to the points that you're saying. So if we're saying that they've got the 2 best players on the court,
they
Kevin
don't
Durant,
though. They
Kevin
do
Durant
not have the
Kyrie
2 best
Irving?
players on the court. No, Kyrie Irving is not better than Jaylen Brown.
KD and Kyrie are better than LeBron.
You only evaluate talent, and I'm telling you, in the playoffs, that is not everything. Because when Jaylen Brown is locking up one of those 2 guys, it's not what it comes down to. There's more than just skill ability.
But okay. All right, fine. Forget about Boston because I consider
you
Boston
have to
the
look
best
at the
team in the East.
cohesiveness.
Forget
of
about
a unit.
Boston because I consider
you have
Boston
to look at coaching. You're not even taking into account Ime Udoka, who was one of the best rookie coaches we have seen, who got his team to rally after starting below 500 and took it to the finals. Steve Nash, in terms of X's and O's, has proven nothing so far in the NBA. He is there to mediate.
Okay.
So how you only gonna look at talent?
Can I go? I go?
Go for it.
Okay. Forget about Boston because I agree Boston's the best team in the East, okay? Let's go to those 2 teams that you named when I was making my points when we first started. The Toronto Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you throwing them in there, and I'm sorry, I think at the end of the season they won't even belong in the same sentence as the Brooklyn Nets.
That's what I'm saying. And all right, let me get this out, please. Toronto Raptors and 76ers, you said.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, John, the Raptors, like, you really think the Raptors have a chance of even competing? They're not even in the contenders, okay? No. Don't nod your head yes, because they're not. This is a star-driven league. Name me their superstar.
You want to know it's also? It's a matchup-driven league. If Boston has the matchups for Brooklyn, then so does Toronto. Toronto right now is basically deploying Project 6'8", Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes going to his 2nd season, Gary Trent, Fred VanVleet's one small guy.
Name me the NBA Finals champions in the last 20 years that didn't have a superstar besides the Detroit Pistons.
There is none. But
exactly my point. So why are you talking about the Toronto Raptors like they legitimately have a shot at being champions this year when
is
they
Nick Nurse,
don't?
Is Nick Nurse a top 3 head coach?
Okay.
That does. All right, I'm gonna have to cut you
Leonard
off.
anymore?
Let me please. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead,
cut you
John.
off because Brandon's making all the points for me. He's just saying everything while I'm thinking it. When it comes to the Raptors, dude, if you don't have a star, you're not going anywhere. You can
Pascal Siakam made an All-NBA team last season.
He is not a superstar.
He's an all-star.
Scotty Barnes is developing as well.
Get you over the hump. There's so many. I'm looking at Miami. I'm sorry, the Raptors. The Raptors stand no chance. They won't take them to 6. They won't. They won't.
You're massively underrating how far an elite head coach and a top 10 defense takes you in this league. Name me the playoff teams outside Golden State in 2020 that missed the playoffs while being elite on that end of the ball.
Wait, does Miami not have a top 3 head coach and an elite defense?
That's why I'm high on Miami every season.
Player?
In the postseason, Jimmy's a superstar.
That's what we're talking about, John.
But we don't know what Scotty Barnes is going to be.
That's where the money's made.
Yeah, I'm saying we don't know exactly what Scotty Barnes is going to be in year 2. If he takes that offensive leap as a self-creator, Toronto's
I'll
going to
take a
have
bet
2 star
right now with
players.
you that Scotty Barnes is not a superstar by the end of this season.
I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar, but can Scotty Barnes, by the end of this NBA season, when he's healthy for next postseason, be a top
John,
35
John,
player, similar to
is
Anthony
Kawhi
Edwards this last season?
is Kawhi Leonard walking through those arena doors anytime soon in Toronto?
I'm
No,
afraid
so
not.
they're not doing nothing. I'm sorry. They're not. Now let's go to the 76ers. Really? 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 Is Joel Embiid, do you have faith Joel Embiid is going to be there at the end of the season? James Harden, do you have faith with him in elimination games, close, tough, defensive, gritty games? Tobias Harris, are we serious?
Well, Tobias Harris last year improved a ton in the postseason. As a
I'll
defender,
be honest.
as
I'm
a
on
shooter,
Phillies.
let me say something.
But
Philadelphia's issue, I tried telling you guys, I don't know if you're trying to listen to me. It was not just James Harden. It was not just Joel Embiid's health. It was toughness. It was accountability. It was physicality. Leadership, physicality, and toughness. PJ Tucker comes into the door.
Okay.
Daniel House comes in, who was really good for Utah last season, but for some reason, Quinn Snyder didn't want to start him, which was weird to me. He's better than Royce O'Neal. Then you add in D'Anthony Melton, who is another player in Memphis that Taylor Jenkins didn't fully trust, but when he was out there, there were games where he had to close the game. He can shoot it, very good guard defender. So now you add in depth to a team that has had basically none since 2018, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Tyrese Maxey is continuing to grow into this bona fide star in the backcourt, and James Harden, no matter what you want to say, created an elite pick and roll, the best pick and roll duo last year, Joel Embiid. And now he's going to have a full off season to recover and a full regular season to work with Embiid that he did not have last season. Now, Doc Rivers, I'm not very high on him as the head coach, but in the regular season, he's more than capable of getting to a number 1 seed. We've seen that multiple times. So now look at the depth this team has had, the superstar talent, because Joel Embiid has been a runner-up for MVP the last 2 seasons, and a supporting cast, because Tobias Harris was better last season. And yeah, this Philadelphia team doesn't have a weakness. They don't. The
Okay.
only thing that could hold them back is James Harden being worse than he was last postseason and Joel Embiid going down.
That's where I stand with John there. I'm a big believer in the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'll go as oh man, I'm gonna drive you guys nuts with this one. By the end of the regular season, honestly, I could see the Sixers and the Nets as top 3 seeds in the East.
I'm just not willing to bet
I
on
think
Kyrie.
things have to go right, obviously, but you can't tell me with the weapons that they have, with KD, with Kyrie, with Ben Simmons, if things work out, if the stars align, then you got Joel Embiid, you got Max, you got James Harden, you got Harris, everybody. I mean, I feel like the 76ers are a pretty complete team. So if everything goes correct, why can't these two teams be the top in the top 3 in the East?
So let me fire away. I don't give a crap about the regular season. Okay? I care about the playoffs. All right? I have 2 questions for you, John, and Justin, because you're high on the Sixers. Do you trust Joel Embiid's health late in the season? And do you trust James Harden in elimination games? The answer to those questions are both no.
The answer to the former is yes.
What was that?
The answer to the former, do I trust Joel Embiid to stay healthy? Yeah, he's taking much better
What
care
the
of his
hell has
body.
shown you that?
He's
Where's that
taking
confidence coming from?
the last 2 seasons, he has done a much better job taking care of himself. 2021 is playing through a partially torn meniscus. People point to his first few years in the league. That at large part is Philadelphia trying to get top picks. They weren't going to play him. If his body's in shape and he's not playing over 65 regular season games, look, Embiid's injuries last year, the thumb, the concussion, the facial fracture, that was really fluky. It was terrible luck for him.
All right, John, I can agree with you because a dead clock is right twice a day. You just named 4 injuries. That's not. There's a rule. I forget the saying of like twice is a coincidence, 3 times of this, 4 is a pattern. He's showing you what it's. Okay, they could be fluke accidents, but they keep happening to this one person.
But
but
this team is. I'm sorry, Brandon. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
it just seems at this point you can't give me a real legitimate reason why you have confidence in Joel Embiid's health late in the season. There's no where's the medicine coming that's going to fix these things? There's no medicine out there because any athlete will be taking those. Where's the confidence coming
Did he
from?
play a career high in games last season?
Correct, he did.
Well, what happened in the
68.
postseason?
If it weren't for COVID, he would have played almost 80.
How many injuries did he deal with in that postseason?
3 separate.
Huh?
3 separate. We're seeing sad Joel in that Toronto series in Miami.
You said 3 injuries on one guy.
But you know what the thing is? I think Philadelphia is so good that we can lock them in for the postseason. That
I'm not arguing that.
This is what I want to get into is that load management is a thing. You don't need Joel Embiid to give you 70 games in a season. If you can rest him during the regular season, play him 60, 65 games. He played 68 this past season, I believe.
Yep.
Just take it easy on the minutes just a little bit, and this guy's primed and ready to go for the postseason.
Yeah, but again, I'm just saying though, it's just you can do the load management. Well, we've seen also load management can screw you at the end. Because another thing that people don't like to talk about with load management is that your body is not gaining that, and it's weird, but athletes will talk about it all the time. It's you're gaining that I'm trying to think of the word. It's like when you over time when you do something over and over again, you gain a
It's like muscle memory kind of thing.
no, it's I forget the word. I hear it all the time with athletes, but like basically like you're playing basketball all the time, so your your body is more used to taking that kind of punishment over time. I'm losing the word, but whatever. It's besides the point. So when you take some time off and you do load management, your body's not always ready and prepared because there's a lot of rest going on, and now you're going in the postseason where the game speeds up, the game is called differently, the game is more physical. That last part, all 3 of those actually do not work in James Harden's favor. James Harden does not work good in games that are going super fast. It does not work in games that the refs don't give him his little BS calls that he gets and takes advantage of the rules. And he does not do well when people are physical with him. That's just a fact. He's a finesse player. So you're telling me the top 2 players have major question marks and concerns around them. I'm putting no faith in them.
Jesse, you know I'm going to take this?
No, go for it. Shoot.
You're overlooking the entire idea that James Harden's not supposed to be Houston James Harden. He's supposed to be a 24-10 guy that will basically open up the game for Embiid. Embiid doesn't have major concerns. It's a question mark, I would say. But like I said before, with the injuries, he's doing a much better job taking care of his body. And I think this organization, with how much they want to win a championship, it's the whole reason why they tanked to get him in the first place, will take the necessary steps in protecting him so in the postseason, he has more energy left in the tank. And the same thing applies to James Harden. Has he ever been hungrier for a championship? This is his last and most realistic opportunity of him getting one. Laughing at me?
Yes, I'm laughing at that because it's just none of those points are valid. Except for okay, fine, you could say James Harden's the hungriest he's ever been. Are you going to show up when it counts? Because you haven't.
That's why it's good having Tyrese Maxey there as well in his third
He's
season.
gonna have how well did Tyrese Maxey play in those playoffs?
I'll chalk it up to youth. I feel like he'll be better with
That's
more
a valid
playoff
point.
experience.
That's a valid point. But again,
he hadn't started a playoff game before until last season.
Whatever. But this point was about the Sixers versus the Nets. And I just want to say straight off the bat that I was defending the Nets a little bit against Sean. I want everybody to know I still 1000% believe and am not wavering on the point. The Brooklyn Nets experiment will end in a failure. You will not be champions. I can promise you that. You can book that, take it to the bank, and cash your check now. Ain't happening. No way. No how.
Let me say something. You guys talked a lot about talent. Before I wrap this up, I'm going to list some things that I think are necessary to win a championship the Nets do not have. First thing is chemistry. Do they have chemistry at that team coming to the season? Do they have
No.
quality or adequate playoff coaching? Do they
I don't
have
even
any
think you have to say
semblance?
playoff coaching, just adequate coaching in general. No.
Yeah, I think they might have one of the 3 worst coaches in the league. Do they have front court depth or any semblance of front court skill?
No.
Are there 2 top players available for them?
Haven't been.
Has their best player run out of gas in each of the last 2 playoff runs?
Yep.
Has he been able to play over 55 games in the last 2 seasons?
Nope.
Not even 40 in his first actual year in Brooklyn. Are these star players accountable to any degree?
No.
So why the hell is this a legitimate top 4 team in the regular season? Why are we taking this team so seriously? Because Ben Simmons is the 3rd star in that equation. Joe Harris, like I said before, has been a disappearing act. That is why I don't take this as a legitimate top 4 team. And I look at matchups and say Boston, Toronto, heck, Milwaukee can all pose serious challenges for them in the postseason.
I'll tell you why. Before we switch, I'm a super optimist when it comes to a lot of things, especially my favorite teams. And while I hate the Brooklyn Nets and I hate to make excuses for them, I believe in sports and I believe in when it gets to the postseason, it's about momentum. That's really it. If you can get hot at the right time, you can cruise and you can be unstoppable. We've seen it with many teams in baseball, basketball, football. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals, just getting to the Super Bowl this past season. Momentum is a real thing, and who's to say that things can't change? We've seen crazier things in sports where the unlikeliest scenarios do happen. So I'm not going to sit here and just shoot this down and say, no, it's never going to happen. Philadelphia isn't going to do nothing. Brooklyn isn't going to do nothing. No, things can change. We seem to forget that we're going to have a talk later on today about some of the greatest small forwards of all time. And forget that. Kevin Durant is just one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Why can't we ride that wave? Why can't Brooklyn ride that wave in the postseason? If Kyrie's on and he's on, what if Ben Simmons is actually healthy and playing like the All Star we expected him to be? A lot of things can change. So I get it. They have not shown any record for us to trust them. You can't trust them. I don't trust them. But I'm putting all my chips on the table right here, and I'm willing to go as far to say, yo, this Brooklyn Nets team might be playing in the conference finals. I I really believe in Kevin Durant. I do believe in the talent of Kyrie Irving, and I'm telling you, man, a lot of things can change. Sports is a crazy, crazy thing, man. We've seen a lot of crazier stuff than the Brooklyn Nets potentially being good. They have the talent to do so. So if they get there, I don't think any of us will be surprised by it.
If TJ Warren, after playing 4 games the last 2 seasons, is a legitimate starting 2-way win for them, and Ben Simmons is actually not afraid to take a layup, and he overcomes that mental block, then I do agree with you. This team can do some special things. Outside of when they run into Giannis and Joel Embiid, that'll be pretty ugly. But so we're back. We took a little break, and Justin and I, Brandon, while you were gone, got into a little Tom Thibodeau discussion. I was on the Pick Side podcast, and I said Tom is Thibodeau, not an above average head coach. He's below average. And Justin, like many Knick fans, will scoff at that. I don't understand why. What is the love for Tibbs?
Are you asking Brandon? Or are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay. So I'll be honest. Part of it is bias at the same time. Before Tibbs got into town, I was looking at a team that was far from competent. I didn't look like we weren't playing basketball. We were a joke. We were a complete joke in the Garden. And then Tibbs came in, turned this thing around, got us into the playoffs. While the playoff series was a disaster, I just feel like Tibbs brings direction. Tibbs brings structure. And I feel like those are things that he deserves some credit for. Well, yes, we were talking about it during the break about him being a poor playoff coach. I agree. But I don't believe that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I think you can. So It's more about him buying in, believing in the young talent. You don't know where this Knicks team is going to be next season, if we're going to acquire a superstar or not, or maybe RJ takes another step, Obi takes another step, maybe Randall goes. They seem to believe that he can look more like 2021 Randall than he did this past season. Not expecting him to have that same level of production, but I do anticipate him being better. So why not, man? Tibbs is a great coach. He's a good coach. He's a good coach.
Okay.
He's not a below average, because below average
He is.
is insulting.
First off, I want to say any NBA coach is great at what they do. And Tom Thibodeau has a specific template that can maximize the potential of a regular season team. You said he was a bad playoff coach. No, he is an awful playoff coach because you said you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Thibodeau's method, his practice to maximizing his team, often leads, especially with RJ Barrett, until his last season, where they basically his hand in the keys. He was not doing what was best for his young talent. Taking a step beyond that in the postseason killed his team because when Julius Randle was shooting 29% in that Atlanta series, I repeat, 29%, RJ Barrett's playing the same role as he did in the regular season as a spot up shooter. But what if he was actually able to utilize RJ as an on-ball player during the season? And so he was developed enough in that postseason run to give him some juice in the offensive end. I think Thibodeau is incredibly reliant on just talent on offense, and while defensively he can inspire his players to play at a high level there, if you're terrible in the postseason, I mean awful, and oftentimes you can't rebuild, you can't develop young talent at a high enough level at the same time. There are many young coaches that are more adaptive, they're highly innovative, and they're actually, in a way, willing to be molded into different types of coaches. I look at a Chauncey Billups. I feel like he can do multiple things in Portland if you want to win now, or at the same time rebuild. But Thibodeau, I don't think you can rebuild with him. I only think you can make the playoffs and basically go nowhere unless you're relying on an MVP caliber player in Derrick Rose.
Brandon,
Yeah.
Thibodeau's below average?
Nah, he's about
Average.
a little
I did
bit
this
above
already.
average head coach.
I did this already. If I named you the head coaches, you wouldn't have him top 15.
Like if I would give him like a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably say he's like a 6.
There's a lot of really good coaches in the NBA.
Like that's not really good, John. A 5 is average. A 6 is slightly above average. 6.
When you compare it relative to the existing coaches in the league, Thibodeau is
Who's
20 for
comparing?
me.
I'm not comparing him to any. He's not Eric Spoelstra. He's not Ty Lue. He's not.
But the average head coach is Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel is a championship winning head coach.
What? Wait, who? Who is his roster? Who is his roster, John? Answer the question.
Thank you,
Why did they win a championship? How? What was their identity?
LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
But their offense was the 11th best in the NBA that season. Their defense is what made them a championship caliber team.
Because AD was healthy.
Yeah, but how about all the wing players? It wasn't just AD. In order to have elite defense,
Frank Vogel the credit for that championship.
Are you serious? You're discounting the development of Alex Caruso?
I'm dead serious. Any team that's led by LeBron James, most times.
But did he get LeBron a buy-in defensively? Did he get the development of Alex Caruso, Taylor Horn-Tucker? This last season for Vogel was bad, but that was because the roster wasn't there to provide what he needed on the defensive end.
So what about Tibbs?
What about him? He tried to make Evan Fournier
into Reggie Ball. Does he have the roster to provide him that talent?
Yeah, he had Evan Fournier, like I just said, try to use him as a 3 and D wing. You don't do that.
You're trying to tell me if Tom Thibodeau's the coach of those Lakers, they don't win the championship?
Question.
That's a good question.
Sure. I've seen so many embarrassing playoff moments with him from the Houston series.
Did he have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the court? No, he didn't. What was Frank Vogel before them?
In Indiana, he was taking LeBron to 7 games. What do you mean was Frank Vogel before then?
Actually, right before, wasn't he working for ESPN? Didn't even have a job?
He was in Orlando. Yeah, on an Orlando team that was not good enough to make the playoffs, and he was trying to rebuild and at the same time retool. It's hard to do.
Wasn't Thibodeau the coach of those Chicago Bulls that gave LeBron troubles too?
But Derrick Rose got hurt. Why? Because he kept D Rose in the game too long.
All right, but nobody brought that up. I just said, didn't they give them problems too?
Before Derrick Rose got hurt for one series.
Okay. You're trying to act like Frank. That was an idiotic statement, John. You know basketball, okay? And you said Frank Vogel is one of the reasons that the Lakers won that championship.
Do you
They could
see,
have won that championship with you coaching them, okay? Stop it.
Justin, you saw those Pacers teams humiliate your Knicks with Royce, not Royce, Roy Hibbert. I give Frank Vogel a lot of credit for those years where they're winning almost 60 games with average rosters outside Paul George. It was nothing to
Yeah,
write
but
home
that was
about.
when the East was weak.
But they almost beat LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and
No,
Chris
you
Bosh
know
in
the thing
20.
is, everybody craps on LeBron James's legacy because he played in the East, which was so weak outside of the top three teams, and even then, who came in?
It was dude. It was nicknamed the Leastern Conference.
There we go. That's my point. So
because it was weak. Nobody was there when Miami was on top. Nobody was competing with them.
Indiana was.
Okay.
Took them to 7 games, and then the following season 6. If Paul George doesn't get hurt, they could have gone again.
Okay.
They didn't.
Yep.
I guess you weren't watching basketball those years.
No,
Brian.
I watched it. Trust
Okay.
me. I was a Miami Heat fan. I watched it. Question it. I was there. I watched it.
if you have one team that's competing, then your conference is pretty weak.
And I made a mistake. The Bulls did not challenge Miami. They lost in 5 games, so they really didn't. I made a mistake. We took them to 6, I think, the following season in 2012. No, that was 2013. No, they lost in 5 games again then. The Pacers were the only team challenging them. That was Frank Vogel. That was him getting the most out of the squad. So, yeah, I like Frank
one
Vogel.
Series? That was that one series. And then what
Took him to
happened
6 the
afterwards?
following season. The team started
All right,
losing
well,
of
you
its
just
key
said that the
parts.
Bulls take them to 6, and you discredited that.
It was 5 games. I was in 6.
No, but you said 6 after that. The year after, you said they took them to 6 the year after, and you
No,
discredited
the year
that.
after Derrick Rose got hurt in the Philadelphia series, and they never got past 5 games in the playoffs with Tom Thibodeau until
I'm just
2015.
saying what you said. You said they took them 5 games, and then you said the next season the Bulls took them 6 games. Those are the words that came out of your mouth. So then,
No, he
If
corrected
you listened to
himself.
what I said, I
Okay.
corrected myself.
I apologize. I misheard you.
But all in all, I think below average is rough, man. That's a pretty low
I
statement.
don't even think that's the
That
biggest.
speaks to how good the coaches are in the game.
I don't
But
even
the thing is, it's just also like, what is he working with? Where's the star? Where's the savior that's getting you over the hill? If you can name me all these teams, and I can probably name you a star that they have to get them over the hump. The Knicks don't have that. The Knicks are trying to find that, trying to grow that.
Justin,
Like I'm with you. There's
Justin.
so many. What's up?
Listen. He can't say he can't if he says that the Lakers would have lost that championship if they had Thibs as the head coach. His basketball card is getting revoked. You're done. You don't know crap about basketball if you say that. So he can't say that. So then he's basically saying you were wrong when you said Frank Vogel was a key contributor to those Lakers runs. I'm sorry. Isn't Thibodeau known for his defense too?
One of the 5 best defensive coaches.
Okay.
Sure.
So then again, I ask you, if Thibs was the head coach of those Los Angeles Lakers, that Los Angeles Lakers team, would they have still won the championship?
We'll never know. I think so, but he's been a terrible playoff coach, and you can't deny that. That's why I
feel like Cam Newton right now. He doesn't want to answer the direct question because he's admitting he's wrong. You want to say, we'll never know, and then you want to say, I think so. If you don't think so, have the courage of your conviction and say, no, they wouldn't. Or say they would because you know they would because you know basketball, John. Nobody's questioning your basketball knowledge. You know it. So you know they would have won.
So to basically agree with you, you want me to hypothetically predict that a terrible playoff coach would just work somewhere because Anthony Davis and LeBron James are there. There's player relationships, there's management skills, there's stuff that it's a lot more than just being a great defensive coach. I don't know if Tom Thibodeau would be the proper fit with that Laker team.
LeBron would have taken David Blatt to the NBA Finals.
Didn't he? Or he got replaced by Ty Lue by then?
Yeah, I think he got.
But in the first year, they had David Blatt, right? But they lost?
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so he did. Like, what are we talking about?
You're right.
LeBron James is I won't say never. Eric Spoelstra wasn't Eric Spoelstra of now back then. Like, come on, man. Really? Like, who was their head coach when he took Cleveland to the finals the first time?
Mike Brown. Who's another very good defensive coach. I think Tom Thibodeau's on that Mike Brown level. So,
well, if you're saying he's a good defensive coach, if you're going to tell me that Tom Thibodeau would have broke up a LeBron James led team, you're smoking crack. Is LeBron James not one of the greatest leaders of all time?
yes, we'll never know. Let's move on to the Western Conference because we're not in agreement here.
You brought it up, but let's go on to the Western Conference.
Now we're going to move on.
Out of a job, right?
Well, you can look at the Lakers front office and the organizational chaos and point to that.
That's why nobody hired him, right?
Well, he's a win-now head coach, much like Tom Thibodeau. That's why Tibbs didn't have a job himself either, and he was also on ESPN. We're going to be talking about the Memphis Grizzlies, and they were a team you guys mentioned before for checking in on the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, but ultimately with him staying in Brooklyn, it's not a path for them now. I was saying at the time, they had 5 first-round picks they could have moved, one of which was Golden State's in 2 years, and a young one in Zaire Williams, who reminds me a lot of Brandon Ingram. I think he could be a do-it-all forward that can play at a high level on both ends of the floor and is only 20 years old. So it'll take him some time, but that's as good a package as the Nets could have gotten maybe. Now with the Grizzlies, their second best player in Jaren Jackson, second best, he underwent foot surgery, and he's going to miss the start of the season. And overall, Jaren last year, he stayed healthy, which was a positive, but he didn't take the leap the team needed out of him offensively to really hit that next level. So with him being out to start the season, you lose some key bench pieces in D'Anthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, who played some nice roles for them here and there. How can Memphis in a Western Conference that has Luka, Steph Curry, Nikola Jokic, and even Paul George and Kawhi Leonard separate themselves from the rest of the pack? Because right now, I don't see it.
I'm with you there. I see regression coming. They had a magical year. I mean, they won 56 games. But when you look at the Western Conference, you threw out names like Luka, and I'll even add it, Jokic. They'll be better with Jamal Murray coming back healthy. Minnesota will be better. The Clippers will be better. The Pelicans will be better. It's inevitable. I think Memphis ends up regressing this coming year. Not saying they'll be a poor team. There's plenty of things to be optimistic about, and their future is bright as hell. It is shining. But this upcoming season, I don't see a title contender here. Really don't. Pushing it?
I'll say this. I mean, listen, the West is back this year, barring any, obviously, injuries. You got Golden State, Phoenix, Denver, Clippers, Dallas, Minnesota, and New Orleans are rising teams.
The number 1 seed that won 65 games. Did you mention the Suns?
I did. Yeah, they were like the second team I mentioned.
Whenever you list teams, I always forget the first or second. I'm not exactly
and
sure.
then finally,
I didn't mention the Suns, so that's probably why you get a guy. I didn't even mention the Lakers.
Yeah, and then I was just about to say, and then we'll see what the Lakers do, right? For me, Memphis, I mean, they had a Cinderella story last year. We've seen it a lot. Where a team is really good one year and then they regress. They're obviously we're going to regress. I don't even see. I mean, let's see. Look, Phoenix, Golden State, Denver, Clippers, Dallas. I mean, they'll probably be maybe 6 is their highest peak. Probably going to be around. Maybe they might even be a freaking play-in team next year.
Defensive anchors missing 4 to 6 months from July to basically December.
Yeah.
First 2 months of the season.
Yeah.
Let me say this. The reason why I think the Grizzlies are relevant is because, one, they have the most exciting player in basketball in John Morant. He is must-see TV. And for an organization, let's say how it is, I love Memphis. They were so much fun in the grit and grind days. But when they traded Marc Gasol and Mike Conley, they were the most boring team in basketball, and there was no direction. Ja instantly came in and provided that for them. But the second layer of this is, with John Morant missing the last few games of that Golden State series, they blew out the Warriors by 53 points. And even further, this team is not only tough to play in their place, but no team last postseason gave the Warriors a better run for their money than the squad. Even the Celtics, they took them to 6 and they won game 1. I think the Grizzlies were the biggest threat to dethroning the Warriors last postseason. So I now look at what the next step for them is, and while I don't see it, continuity is really the only thing they have going for them, because they're retaining the same starting lineup, and they're retaining the player with the most upside, who I think is their X factor, who they didn't trade for Kevin Durant, and that is Zaire Williams. I talked about him highly before. Former number 11 overall pick, top 10 pick. They got him in the Jonas Valanciunas trade with the Pelicans. They moved up to get him. Their general manager in Zach Kleiman sees exactly what they need in Zaire. A wing player that has no weakness, can create advantages one-on-one, and you look at Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum in Boston, just overall is going to close games for you and always be a threat. Even if he's not making shots, he can create for teammates, get defensive stops, get putbacks in transition, run the floor. But he's 20 years old. And that's why when I look at his team now, I say, he's not ready yet. Last year, he wasn't very good to start the season. He developed enough to start a playoff game for them. But my question ultimately is, I think it's going to take 2 years for him to really grow into, maybe compare his development track to Jimmy Butler or Paul George. It took those guys until their 4th seasons. So from this current point in time, where John Morant, we don't know what he's going to be in 3 years. People will deny it because of how much fun he is, but these injuries with a guard like him, that he plays aggressive, his downhill style at times can be reckless. The Grizzlies have to win now. I don't know necessarily if they can wait on Zaire's development, because we saw Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, as these Jaren Jackson Jr. injuries are piling up, their time to win might be right now. And if you say, we got a great future, we got Desmond Bane averaging 20 a game in his second season, we have all these draft picks, one of which is Golden State's, we're in good shape. That's what the Bulls did, Jimmy Butler. Like, look what happened. A decade later, and the Bulls, they still don't look like a championship contender, and they made no progress. So, I'm going to kick it back to you guys. Is there a certain player now that they can go after? You know, I don't think they're getting Donovan Mitchell or John Morant. Defensively, that would be ugly.
So, what I'll say is that, listen, I think their best shot of winning was last year. I don't see, I mean, in the near future, like I'm talking this season, I just don't see a high ceiling for them. It's a star driven league. You've got Ja, obviously. Triple J is a very good player, but he's not a star. He's an all-star caliber player, but he's not that star.
Not even. He's
It's
just a
just,
star role player.
yeah. And then you got some really good, other good players like you mentioned, Bane, Brooks. We'll see if Zaire uh takes the necessary steps forward. But again, it's just a bunch of good, solid players. Ja can't do it alone. And again, people will probably laugh at me and be like, "Well, Brandon, did you not see the record last year with Ja? It was incredible. You think they're going to do it again? You think they can replicate that? There's film out on them now without Ja. Teams are going to be looking at that. They're going to be studying it. See, the West was not stacked like it is this season. People don't real. Jamal Murray was out. Kawhi Leonard was out. The Lakers were filled with injuries. Klay Thompson didn't play half the season, basically. I can keep going. Like, it's gonna be different this year. And I think Memphis is gonna get a real kick in the ass. I think, did they play opening night, right? Against the Warriors. Or no. That's
They play
Christmas
on
Day. Sorry, that's
Christmas.
Christmas
Yeah.
Day. They do. So, what's their first game against the Knicks? Okay, Knicks on second October 19th, Wednesday against the Knicks.
I'm so
ESP
pumped for that.
on ESPN in Memphis though. Uh, so that obviously they'll start, but I think they're gonna realize that this is a whole different animal. This West, like this is the real Western Conference that we've known and grown accustomed to over the past, I don't know, 20 years maybe. You're gonna see it. I mean, for me, the favorites are um, Golden State and the Clippers. They're the top two guys, top two teams in my opinion.
No, you're 100% right. Yo, the Wild Wild West is back. It really is. So, and this is a new animal that Ja hasn't had to deal with. And I'm not gonna knock the guy. And John, you mentioned the injuries. The guy plays like he's D Rose, man. The closest replica to what I remember watching when D Rose was being when he was an MVP player for the Bulls. You know, I see that when I watch John Morant. So I mean, you cross your fingers and you pray that he never has no terrible injuries like that. But there isn't a star out there available. And like you said, Donovan Mitchell doesn't fit the bill. I mean, it's easy to say everybody wants a star on their team, but not necessarily that star is going to fit your team, you know? I mean, look at the Knicks, look at Carmelo. Not everything is a match made in heaven right away. Things take time, things boil over. So the only thing I could think of, and this is a long shot, but the future in Milwaukee isn't promised for Giannis. And but I can't see Giannis finding his way over to Memphis.
No, I think if I'll just touch on it real quick. I think two legitimate, and I'm not just saying my the Heat because I'm a Miami Heat fan, but I do think that there's a little legitimate traction that can be made when that contract is up. I think Dallas and Miami are two places that Giannis would fit perfectly. Um, yeah, I agree with you, Justin. There's no, I mean, when that report came out about them getting KD, that was the shot right there. I mean, you needed to dot, and I heard so they weren't willing to include Triple J
And
nor
Desmond.
Desmond Bain, right?
Mhm.
And actually, I just want to comment on it because I watched a little bit of when John was on the Pick a Side podcast and they talked about this. And I forget who it was. What's his name?
Joel or Joel?
No, the other one.
He's
He
in the
said something.
middle, Joel.
Oh yeah. Or maybe it was a different pot. Did you guys talk about it when you were on the Memphis trade? Or was that? I
They
think it
didn't
was the
make a
episode
trade.
after. I think it was the
Oh,
episode after.
yeah, that was Will. Will has the curly blonde hair,
No.
glasses. I think. I don't know if he
Rick,
was wearing them.
what's his name?
Oh, Riv.
Riv. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Apologies, Riv. I knew it was something. Okay. I think he scoffed at it when they said you're not gonna willing to give up Desmond Bain for Kevin Durant. Are you stupid or are you dumb? Either one. Pick your poison because you're either one. Desmond Bain for Kevin. I do that in a heartbeat. Take it. Go ahead. I got Kevin Durant. I'm a legitimate top three contender in the West right now with KD and Jean Morant and Triple J and Steven Adams down low. Come on. And you still keep Dylan Brooks and what you do that 10 times out of 10. If they were going to accept it, the Nets probably weren't going to accept it, but you take that 10 times out of 10. So Kevin Durant was their best shot. I mean, yeah, there's no other star or superstar out there that's, wanting to get out. Maybe a Bradley Beal, but I don't think that even puts them over the top. I really don't.
Now, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Brian, you love Klay Thompson. I know that, and
Love
you have
me.
had him as high as top 10 in the league.
I won't, but yeah, when he was at the height of powers, he was my number 10 best player in the league.
So you value a perfect backcourt complement to a star, don't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
That's what Desmond Bain is or John Morant. And so the Grizzlies, they say, if we get rid of Desmond Bain and we have Dylan Brooks filling in, Dylan is a very good culture piece, but he's not really a reliable shooter. But Desmond Bain is one of the 7 best shooters in the whole league. And he was averaging almost 20 a game in his sophomore season. He's as sturdy a wing player as they come because he doesn't really have a weakness. He can do a little bit of everything outside the shooting aspect. That is why they want to include him. Because you look at all the assets, they could have given up a Zaire Williams, who was worth a lot more than Bain, and like 5 picks. So I think to them, they're saying we can still get a
No,
package
I
done
think
without
they
including
honestly,
him.
I think they would have had to give up both and the picks. Because I mean, it's Kevin Durant. You said to yourself, Joe Tsai's not going to take a stupid deal, or Sean Marks is not going to take a stupid deal. He would have said, "I want Zai." He might have even said, "I want Triple J, Desmond Bain, and the 5 picks." Do I dive at that? I think about it. I think about it. I really do. I consult my people and I really think about that because Kevin Durant with John Morant, the culture, the coach, defensive nature, you got a shot.
And if you're Memphis, I know John Morant tweeted easy money when KD requested his trade as if he was going to compel Kevin to come to Tennessee. Memphis, I think it's an awesome place to live. No state income tax. A lot of people go there for school, and the basketball team's awesome. Football team's not bad either. But you're not getting the star talent, and this is your best opportunity through trade to get a top 5 player, arguably a top 15 player of all time. This opportunity doesn't come around often. The backup plan to me is Pascal Siakam. If you give up that existing package of Zaire Williams and the 3 first-round picks,
It's not putting you over the top.
how about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander?
I don't really know how that fits. They're both point guards.
Shea's a combo. We'll see if his 3-point shooting will be at 41% or 30%.
That doesn't. I still don't think that gets it done.
Okay.
I mean, maybe Shea becomes a superstar, but again, this is a star-driven league, and you know, it's because we're looking at it and we're comparing them to the other best teams in the West, and Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, Clay, and Dre, uh, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. Like, come on, Ayton, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. You got to compete with that type of power.
I'm afraid to say Memphis might have peaked.
Yep, they might have peaked. And we've seen it before. I can't think of teams that have come off, but we've seen it before, the Cinderella stories. But they don't, obviously work out at the end. Those ones where they make the run, but then they don't.
So moving on to
Real quick before we end, fortunately for Memphis, I get you guys saying they peaked. And yeah, I'm with you guys. There's no star out there. But the team is still young. Desmond Bain's only 24. How old is Ja? 23. Zaire's how old? 20. Hey man, as long as nobody's sustaining any terrible injuries, why can't they? I don't think they peak. Maybe the sky's the limit for them, man. If they're healthy, I'm not saying this is the year. I don't even think next year is the year. But at some point, this star that we're talking about is going to become available. Memphis is an attractive spot.
it is, and the ceiling is high, but we are seeing some pretty catastrophic injuries to Jaren. He's 22. He's already had torn meniscus that he missed over a full year recovering from, and now this foot surgery for 4 to 6 months. That's just 2 years. And he's also very frustrating on the court as well. Don't get me started on his foul issues and his inability to set his feet on a 3-point shot. Because I've made several YouTube videos specifically on if this dude can just grow as an offensive player, they are taking that next step. They are literally a Jaren Jackson. Joel said it on Pick Side. They're a Jaren Jackson Jr. leap away from being a contender. If he can be a 20 and 10 guy that's making 40% of his 3-pointers as he was as a sophomore almost, with Desmond Bain making 40%, Steven Adams creating space for Ja around the rim, this offense is top 5. The defense is top 5. That's a top end contender. But without that, they aren't. So we'll see. Moving on to small forwards, all-time rankings, and this is a list that is interesting because we have many players in the NBA still writing their stories. Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James. He might he might, or maybe I'm not gonna. He's the number one small forward of all time. I don't know what I'm getting at here. Which one do you want to start off first?
All right, let me get my notes out. I had this nice little column in my notes on my phone. Came very prepared. I have it all in order today, so I'm not gonna mess this one up. But number one, it's Paul Pierce. Straight up.
Okay. Do you want to start from number 10 to number 1?
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Why not? I threw the name out there. It's Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is my number 10. Greatest small forward of all time. That is the greatest. That's my favorite basketball player that I've ever watched. The truth, the nickname says it for itself. I mean, he's become underrated by young fans today. His role in the media, it's become more of a joke. So I don't feel like people take him a lot. Really, people don't take him seriously at all. But at the height of his powers, when Paul Pierce was on the court, you could throw any defender at him and he could score from all three phases. All three phases. He'll knock down the three. He'll school you in the mid game, and he'll bully you in the post. He could score on just about anybody. Paul Pierce is legit the truth. So yeah, I got Paul Pierce at number 10. At number 9, I got Dominique Wilkins. Man, I love watching his old dunk highlights. Man, that guy could put on a show. So I got Dominique at number 9. At number 8, can any of you guys take a guess who I got at this one?
Rick Barry or Kawhi Leonard?
Oof. Sorry to break it to you. Kawhi didn't make my top 10. Uh, I have Mr. Carmelo Anthony. Yes, I do. Call me crazy, man. Call me nuts. But he's the bully. He's a bully. If you threw a smaller defender on him, he'd eat you alive. He's one of the greatest scorers of all time, a top 10. I'd say in his prime, top 5 player in the league. 6-time All NBA selection, 10-time All Star. Uh, Unfortunately, I think the crime with with Melo was really just him buying into being a teammate, and just feeding into that because there were certain times where it was I forgot when was it with the Knicks where I'm going on a tangent.
When Jeremy Lin broke out?
Yeah, yeah. If he just bought into the team instead of there's no I in team. He just I just feel like that he always got in his own way. I feel like Melo could have been a championship player, but he just stood in his own way. But still, as an individual, he's a highlight reel. You tune into some highlights with him and with the Nuggets, his early days with the Knicks, Melo's a problem, one of the greatest scorers you'll ever see. Number 7, I have a hard time pronouncing the name, but John Havlicek.
You got it.
Got it right. There we go. I guess I don't need. I'll let you do the history on that one, but his accolades and his numbers speak for themselves. Number 6, I got the King Elgin Baylor. No titles to his name, but plenty of title appearances too. You got to give him some respect. What's up, Brandon?
He's got one championship. He
I
won his
felt
last year.
bad. Technically, he retired
Yeah,
right after that season began. So if you go to Basketball Reference, I'm gonna check to see if they actually have him listed with the title. They
I
don't.
guess. Nah, Justin, you're probably right, but whatever.
Yeah,
I
because he
mean, it
only
didn't
appeared in
change his
9
legacy.
games.
I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah. And by then, he wasn't. Injuries after
Yeah,
the 1970 season really took him out his last 2 years. And the year before, he only played 2 games. That was the second year with Wilt. So devastating injuries for him. Otherwise, he would have had one.
I got Baylor at number 6. At number 5, I have Scotty Tuhati. I got Scotty Pippen at number 5. I really probably the greatest wingman the game has ever seen, the greatest Robin ever. Elite defender, could guard anybody's top scorer on any given night. He'll strap him up. 6-time champ, 7 All NBA selections, 7 All Star appearances, 8 All Defensive teams. You really can't. I don't think there's a more complete player than Pippen. What a great slasher too. He just like I said, he's probably the greatest wingman ever. And nowadays in the NBA, nobody. I mean, in the history of the NBA, nobody wins on their own and everybody's looking for that second piece to complement their star. If everybody had found themselves, everybody's looking for their Pippin, and those guys just don't grow on trees. At number 4, I got the King Julius Irving. I mean, the guy was Jordan before Jordan. If he spent most of his career in the NBA, his numbers would be even more astronomical. But I got Jules at number 4. At number 3, I got KD. And you can't really go wrong. The Slim Reaper is probably the most talented, literally the most talented scorer of all time. I love watching this guy play, and he may be a snake to so many people. He may go down as with the 2 cheapest championships in the world, but talent-wise, you can never go wrong. Kevin Durant is a absolute monster. Number 2, I got Larry Legend. One thing I love about Larry, and I love to hear the stories about his past, about how cocky he was and his confidence. Oh my gosh, how you can walk into a room with tons of NBA All Stars and say, "All right, guys, which one of you guys are coming in second?" Like, dude, that is insane. I've heard so many stories of. I think he was talking trash to Gary Payton, just straight up telling him where he's gonna shoot the ball. Where do you want it next? Just let probably the greatest trash talker in NBA history is Larry Legend. And number one, you can't go wrong. The true king. I've said king about 3 times in this thing, but the person that really stands on the throne is LeBron James. I'm not even gonna go into details as to why. I don't think it's a debate.
We should go into detail for LeBron.
Should I?
Yeah. He's the
Should
best
I?
player of all time to some people.
To me, he is. LeBron is legit my NBA king. I remember vividly. I'll take you guys back a couple years when he was playing in Miami and he was going up against the Knicks in the Garden. Dude, I couldn't afford these seats, but I got handed tickets by my cousin, and I'm sitting right, like so close to the basket, right behind. It's the fourth quarter. It's a close game, and Miami just starts to break away. LeBron's making big plays. He makes a block on one end, comes down the other, and throws it down. He stares at the crowd. I felt like this guy was staring into my soul. And he just screamed at the crowd, just let out a big yell. And at that moment, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm witnessing probably the greatest player ever play basketball." I was in awe. This 12-year-old or 11-year-old me witnessing this kind of greatness. LeBron James, how many eight straight finals appearances? Goes to the West, the Wild Wild West, and goes and wins an NBA Finals. Guys, I don't think it's really a debate, and you guys know it when you're talking about greatest NBA players of all time, LeBron's on it. When you're talking greatest athletes of all time, you're talking LeBron James. Greatest leaders of all time, LeBron James is in that conversation as well. He's number one. There's no debate. If any of you guys have him not at number one, I'll just quit the podcast.
18 All NBA teams. And
Jesus.
those aren't, those like some players later in their career, they'll get, reputation votes and awards. LeBron, all 18 of those seasons, was a top 5 player, arguably the best. Nearly 2 decades of being the best player in the league is something else. Now, Justin, I'm not going to let you get away with not having Kawhi Leonard in your top 10. That, to me, is ridiculous.
Is it?
Kawhi Leonard has been a playoff megastar.
Mm-hmm.
He had the one bad series against Denver. Outside of that, you know what? Let me jump into my top 10. Oh, man. So, some honorable mentions. One of New York's very own, Chris Mullin. I think I should shout him out. Obviously, I talked about before Paul George and Jimmy Butler. Jimmy is a player who I think could be in the top 10 by the end of his career. A superstar through and through in the postseason that elevates his teammates. And if Philadelphia gave him a second opportunity to run it back, I think he could be saying he's an NBA champion at this point. Instead, he goes to Miami and takes a LeBron James Lakers team with Anthony Davis to 6 games instead of Goran Dragic playing two of those appearances, wasn't himself, and Bam Adebayo not being himself for that entire series. So I think Jimmy, he has a very good case for passing up James Worthy, who I have at number 10. Paul Pierce, as well as another name, Finals MVP. I think Worthy had won. Basically, he's also a Finals MVP. I think people forget this. In the 89 Finals, he dropped 36, 16, and 10. Think about that. That is, he was on the Showtime teams, the third piece, but an incredible one at that. And he's very much in the company of, Robert Parrish, Chris Bosh. I think he gets very underrated all the time. Only a 2-time All-NBA player, but a 3-time champ nonetheless. Number 9, we have Rick Barry, another Finals MVP. There's some pretty interesting Rick Barry stories out there. I think he's underrated for the simple fact that if he played in today's league, man, I mean, he was a true innovator of the sport, one of the greatest shooters, a historical icon for the granny foul shots. But Justin, I mean, your Knicks had the opportunity to draft him, and what year is it? 1965, and they didn't. And so I think it was as a rookie, they took Bill Bradley with that pick. I think it was 50 points he dropped in the Garden, and from there, I mean, truly one of the most underrated players. 4-time All NBA, All ABA, and 6-time All NBA. So 10 All NBA teams altogether with 12 All Star appearances. Number 8, I have Elgin Baylor. In terms of numbers, I mean, he's one of the 4 or 5 most productive small forwards, but him not having an NBA title ultimately is what holds him back in this list. One of only 10 players that make 10 All NBA teams, which says a lot. And may he rest in peace. Man, he fought a lot during his career. I wish he could have actually had that NBA title because I would consider having him in my top 7. John Havlicek is my number 7 player. Maybe the most underrated NBA player of all time. I think I dubbed Gary Payton that man in our point guard episode. John Havlicek, you look at his accolades. Number 1, he won 2 NBA titles without Bill Russell and was the Finals MVP. Altogether, he had 8 NBA titles. I don't know. Yeah. So he's this is insane. 11-time All NBA, 8-time All Defense, and no one talks about him as one of the 4 or 5 greatest Celtics of all time. It's like his name is almost completely forgotten about because he played in the 70s. I understand that was a weaker era for the sport, but post Bill Russell, he was a player that continued the Celtics tradition in the legacy. Now, he did play with Bill Cowens on those Celtics teams, who was a Finals MVP or an MVP, excuse me. But nonetheless, I think John Havlicek might be the most underappreciated legend from that era of basketball. Just truly a superstar. Number 6, sorry. I have Scottie Pippen. You said it before, Justin. The greatest wingman of all time. And we forget in 94, he could have went to the conference finals and potentially an NBA championship would have been there for him without Michael Jordan in his age 27 season. And then he goes to Portland when he's, 33 years old, 34? And he takes a Laker team that won 67 games to 7, and it took every ounce of a young Kobe and Shaq just to get past Scottie Pippen, Steve Smith, Rasheed Wallace. Those Blazers teams won almost 60 games. And if it weren't for those Lakers, I think Scottie would have gotten to the finals at some point in Portland. I mean, the Lakers swept him the following 2 seasons. Man, Scottie Pippen, the top 6, top 5 player in the league, in a game where all the elite players outside of him and Michael Jordan were big men. Isaiah Thomas was in that camp for a little bit, and then his career ended shortly. So I think Scottie, 10-time All-Defense, 7-time All-NBA, was still capable of a lot more than just being the greatest number 2 of all time. Number 5, I have Kawhi Leonard. This is where it should be. He ended what would have been 2 three-peats. 2 Finals MVPs. Playoff superstar. The dude is the most complete forward outside KD and LeBron of this era. And those are 2 top 3 players at this position. If it weren't for injuries, I think I'd have him above Julius Erving at number 4. But ultimately, man, I mean, Justin, what is your reasoning not having Kawhi in your top 10? Because that's really what's been bothering me during this entire. I've been wanting to get to this.
Honestly, because I
Is it
wanted
the
to
injuries?
wanted to troll you guys. Paul Pierce I had to put him on the list, and if somebody had to get the boot, it had to be him. I'm
Kawhi is
sorry.
2 Defensive Player of the Year, so 2
Listen,
Finals
I
MVPs.
love the claw. I won't knock you. There's no flaw in the guy's game whatsoever. There's none. I'm not knocking him. I could have went in a lot of different directions. I could have taken Melo off the list. I'm sure he's not on neither of your lists anyway. He's already not.
I forgot, Melo at number 8.
Yeah, so I had Melo there. I love Melo, and I mean, I could have taken out Dominique Wilkins in his place. That's the only other one, but I truly believe Paul Pierce and Carmelo are top 10. So, yeah.
Why?
Why? Why are they top 10 or why are they top 10 over Kawhi?
Why are they top 10 over Kawhi?
Okay, see, that's my thing. I could have put Kawhi over Dominique. But I only put a human highlight reel there. That's it. That's just me. Honestly, I wanted to troll you guys. I love throwing the little twist there for you guys.
If you weren't trolling Brandon and I, where would Kawhi be?
I'd put him 9. Or probably, yeah, between 8 or 9. I flip-flop him over Melo.
I'm sorry, he's ahead of Elgin Baylor all time, dude. I love Elgin Baylor as a legend, but the 1960s and the 2010s are incomparable. The level of difficulty, and just like Elgin, Kawhi produced. He's been a role player. He's been a superstar. That Toronto run was one of the greatest of all time. That
Absolutely.
was
Like I said, I'm not gonna. I have no knock on Kawhi Leonard. 0. Yeah, I could have flip-flopped him in or out. I just I believe Paul Pierce and Melo are top 10, and I wanted to find their place. So, out of respect for the old school basketball and out of respect for the ones that I grew up watching and loving, that's what I went with. And you
per-
know me, I normally don't respect old school basketball. I don't put enough respect on their name. So,
I think it's good, but this is the wrong time for it. Kawhi in that 2019 run is averaging 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists.
what do you want me to tell you? I can't. I already released my top 10. Brandon's sitting here like, yo, just finish your list, man.
Against Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Golden State. Okay. So number 4, Julius Erving, 2-time ABA champ, 1-time NBA champ. And like you said before, if he was in the NBA's entire career, he would have a lot more All-NBA teams to his name. Not just an MVP, league MVP, but also a cultural icon. I have trouble with that word. LeBron literally has this dude in his top 3 because of how much he meant to the game. It started with Elgin Baylor. It went to Dr. J. Went to MJ. Yeah, Larry Bird. Larry Bird, I compare more to Kawhi. And then we had LeBron later on. Number 3, Kevin Durant. MVP in 2014. 2-time champ. The most unguardable player I've ever seen. Most unguardable player outside Michael Jordan, I think. Honestly, if you're looking at this from a pure efficiency standpoint, he's a better scorer than MJ. But just given where they were matched up to their contemporaries, MJ, I mean, he was averaging like 38 a game in some seasons. I'm taking MJ over him. Number 2, Larry Bird. You said it before at the trash talk, man. That's the most underrated part of his legacy. I mean, he would literally come get you in the low block and just say, "How do you want it?" You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take this shot. I'm gonna shoot in your face and make it. And there's a lot of great stories. The All-Star or the shooting contest won at the All-Star game. Obviously, the you can't guard me once. 3-time MVP in 3 straight seasons. That says it all right there. I mean, if you can do that, I mean, that is unheard of today. No, Giannis, none of these players are doing that.
I'll be honest. I feel like Larry Bird is underrated to a lot of people in today's era. Not a lot of people talk about him. We talk about greats, and he easily gets skipped over.
Easily top 7 player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Between him and Duncan and Kobe, it's really close. He only has 3 NBA championships, which is what makes it tough. But man, if he could have played a little longer and got a 4th, I mean, he would be looked at as a top 5 player. I have Magic ahead of him all time, a little bit. But I think he'd be right there in that company of Kareem. Maybe a little bit ahead of Bill Russell. We'll see. Number 1, I got LeBron James. 4-time MVP. He won that, 4 and 5 years? From 2009 to 2013. 4-time champ. And in the postseason for his career is averaging 28 points, 9 rebounds, and like 8 assists. The most complete player of all time. He's got the strength of a center, the ball handling, vision, and passing repertoire of a point guard, and the skill set of the modern day wing that every team looks for. And 8 straight NBA titles, or 8 straight NBA finals appearances, and 3 NBA titles is something that I don't think will be done outside of Golden State for quite some time, given how much parity is in the NBA. So LeBron, number 1. Recap my list. Number 10, James Worthy. Number 9, Rick Barry. Number 8, Elgin Baylor. Number 7, John Havlicek. Number 6, Scottie Pippen. Number 5, Kawhi Leonard. Number 4, Dr. J. Number 3, KD. Number 2, Larry Bird. And number 1, LeBron James.
Okay. Very good from the both of you. So
I'm out. John, you had something to say. John, when you said very good from the both of you, John goes like this.
Carmelo Anthony, number 8 is...
all right, we'll get into that. Don't worry. So kicking off my list, starting at number 10, I think we all actually have the same player, Paul Pierce, number 10. One-time champ, Finals MVP for that year, 10-time All-Star, 4 All-NBA. Yeah, I mean, I looked up this story because I never knew how he got the nickname The Truth, and it was just on his little list right there, and it's so in March of 2001, he went 13 of 19 for 42 points against the Lakers. The Lakers that had Shaq and Kobe on that team, and Shaq after the game nicknamed him The Truth. Said a little other profanity, but we don't have to say that there. Number 9, I have Elgin Baylor. I've said this before. If you played basically 1980 pre-merger, I'm sorry, but it was just such a different time, such a different league. To me, it was a lot of very less talented. I mean, even when Bill Russell was playing, what was there, 8 teams? So, yeah, I mean, I'll give him his respect right there that, he's number 9. And I liked this quote that Bill Russell actually said about him. He said, he is the godfather of hang time. So, I mean, he was doing before, I guess, before Julius Irving came in, he was the guy doing what those Skywalker type things. Number 8, I got John Havlicek. Same thing with Elgin Baylor, pre-merger, pre-1980s. But you can't discredit the 8-time champ, Finals MVP, 11 All-NBAs, 8-time All-Defense. So, number 7, I have Mr. Carmelo Anthony. I can't leave him off my list. I can't.
I thought I was gonna be the only one.
No, you're not. You're not, because when I looked at it and I said, right, I'm gonna put Havlicek and I'm gonna put Baylor on the list, but I can't put them ahead of the modern day guys because of what I said just a couple of minutes ago. I think Carmelo Anthony gets very underrated, and it is self-inflicted. Admittedly, it's self-inflicted. He had the option to join LeBron and Dwayne Wade in Miami and possibly have a chance to create the greatest dynasty in sports history. We'll never know. And he didn't. He decided to take his money in Denver, and then guess what? A year or 2 years later, he ended up wanting out of Denver because he realized he wasn't going to do anything there. Then he had to go, then he went to New York, forced his way to New York, wanted to play in New York. And guess what? The New York had to gut their team to get you. So when you got to New York, you had nothing surrounding you. So it was the Carmelo Anthony show. He, like I just said, he's being underappreciated and underrated, but it is self-inflicted what he did. But you can't tell me that this guy at his height of powers wasn't one of the best, if not the best scorer in the NBA from all levels of the game. His post work is some of the best you'll ever see. Mid-range games, 3-point shots, finishing at the rim, underrated playmaker. When he wanted to back then, he could play defense on you at I won't say a very good or anything, but a good level of defense he could give you. Just being 6'8", 240 plus, athletic, he could give you something if he wanted to. I believe he would have been Rookie of the Year if LeBron James wasn't LeBron James. He would have won Rookie of the Year. If you look at the stats, he actually outclassed LeBron in all of those. Um, yeah, scoring champ.
Are
What
you
are you
guys
laughing
taking
about
into
that?
account the NCAA run that he had as a freshman at Syracuse? Because if you're not, I just don't get how we're using what a player is capable of, not what he accomplished in a top 10 ranking.
What was that? The end part?
I don't get how you can use capability over pure accolades and what they accomplished when you're ranking the most accomplished players of all time. And Melo does not stack up with any of these guys. Jimmy Butler is as accomplished as him.
All right.
Jimmy Butler has been better
Okay.
in the
Okay.
playoffs.
Is Chris Paul a champion?
No.
Is he a top 10 point guard of all time?
It is much different.
Okay.
Chris Paul
Now,
had double the All NBA teams. I don't
I
know,
get that.
8
Well,
all defensive teams,
who is Carmelo's competition in those small
9
forward?
all defensive teams. LeBron, KD, and a little bit of Kawhi,
And
even
then
though
a
it's an opposite
little later.
conference.
So I mean, Chris Paul. It's just listen. I think you're underrated. Like again, he performed to his highest capability in the situation he put himself in. Again, I'm not saying he put himself in those situations. He screwed himself over. And I think he's going when his career is done, which is it's winding down now. He's going to have to look himself in the mirror and say, my career, my legacy could have been flipped if I made one different decision, and that was joining LeBron James and Dwayne Wade in Miami. If you're telling me they don't, if he's there instead of Chris Bosh, and there's no disrespect to Chris Bosh, they win that 2011 Dallas Mavericks series. They still go on to beat the OKC Thunder. They go on to beat the San Antonio Spurs in 2013.
I don't know. Chris Bosh is pretty key that year.
But you know what? But the thing is, that's not even the only move that I'd say would have transcended his legacy. Had he just waited one more year to become a free agent and then signed with the Knicks the year after that, that Knicks squad would have been lethal.
Yeah, but still, I just when you see right there that you could have been a part of that big three, the Heatles. But let's move on. Carmelo Anthony's number 7 for me. I think he gets very underrated. I mean, he's a clutch player, so and it really does suck that we never got to see him in the NBA finals and to see what he can actually produce in the biggest moment on the biggest stage of the game. Number 6, my boy Kawhi Leonard. Now, obviously, his career's not over. He's in the middle of his career, basically, I would say, and he's got some years to go. And I easily can see him moving up to top 3 all time. Honestly, I think he can surpass KD if he does what I mean. If he wins a championship in LA, that's 3 championships on 3 different teams. I think him and LeBron James would be the only people in NBA history to say that. And another thing on top of that, it's he would probably be the Finals MVP. So that's 3 Finals MVPs for 3 different teams. It's a 5-time All Star, 5-time All NBA, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, 7-time All Defense, led the league in steals in 2015. I mean, this guy, man, I just in awe of what this guy can do from where he became, from where he started, I should say, in San Antonio and in college, where he had like literally no offensive game whatsoever, and that San Antonio Spurs coaching staff had to rework his shooting form and give that man the confidence that he now has to the highest ability in his jump shot. I mean, to go from that to being arguably the best mid-range shooter in the NBA today shows hard work, discipline, work ethic, like all of that. He's one of the greatest defenders of all time. Um, again, yeah, those 2 seasons that you cut out sucks, but again, I think those are freak accidents. The first one being Zaza a cheap shot, and the second one being Joe Ingles bumping into his thigh with his knee. Like those are things that you're not really. I mean, first the Zaza one you're definitely not accounting for. The knee getting bumped into the thigh can happen anytime. But it just sucks for Kawhi that he missed those 2 seasons because I do believe I called it. Well, I didn't call it because it didn't happen, but I said that the San Antonio Spurs were going to beat that Golden State Warriors super team that first year. I truly believe that, and I think the game one was indicative of what was going to happen going into that series. And if he did that, Kawhi Leonard would be talked about even on a higher stratosphere than now. If he was able to basically single handedly take down that ultimate team in their first year. Um, yeah, I'll move on from Kawhi because I've put a lot onto Kawhi, but Kawhi's my guy, and I can't wait to see. He's got to string together 4 to 6 more years of very quality, great basketball, but I think he can do that, and we'll see it this year. Little teaser for our when we get into our NBA predictions in a month or two. Number 5, I got Scottie Pippen. First off, I just got to say, the greatest Robin of all time, and that's not a slight at him, but that's just the role he was in, and he did it to the highest level that he was possible. And that's why I also have so much respect for Clay Thompson. He could do basically, like Justin said, he was a complete player. He was a point forward basically before point forwards were even a thing. He could play make, defend at the high. I mean, he's one of the great, probably top 5 greatest defenders of all time. Um, he developed a shot over time. He was athletic, smart player, everything. Like this guy was complete. And then again, the accolades, obviously, you all know 6-time champ. Um, was able to lead the Chicago Bulls to the conference finals and was like what 1 game away from going to the NBA finals without MJ. Yeah, I look at Pippen and I'm like, this guy's got to be in your top 5 small forwards of all time. Obviously, that's going to change once Kawhi Leonard starts getting his thing going again. He's going to overtake it. Number 4, I got the doctor is in Julius Irvin. Uh, some things that I've looked up that I've seen during his 16 years as a pro player, his team never missed the playoffs. That just shows consistency right there. I've looked up things I didn't even realize this, but this is what all the reports are saying. Reports or historians are saying that this guy basically invented being posterized. Like he invented that. This is what this guy did. Very well-rounded player, great driver of the basketball, good defender. His athletic translated to his defensive skills. Um, and I forget who said this quote, but this is also another. So I said Bill Russell said to Elgin Baylor he was the godfather of hang time. I guess people have said about Julius Erving he's the godfather of the jam. I love it, and obviously the most his most iconic play is the up and under behind the backboard layup while palming the ball. It's one of the most iconic plays you'll ever see in NBA history, probably sports history, to be honest with you. Let's move into the top 3. Reluctantly, number 3, Kevin Durant. Me and KD. Oh my god. I gotta give him his due though. 2-time champ, 2-time Finals MVP, regular season MVP, 12-time All Star, 10-time All NBA,
Two-time
Rookie of the
quitter.
Year. Huh?
Two-time quitter.
Yeah, you could say that. 4-time scoring champ. He was a 50-40-90 club member. His career stats are pretty insane. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4.5 assists, a block and a steal a game on 49% shooting, 38% from the 3-point line, and 88% from the free throw line. This guy is what you would call a unicorn. 7 feet tall, 7'5" wingspan, handles, post game. In his prime, was a very good defender, very good and underrated rim protector. Could play make when he wanted to. Could score from every level of the basketball court and could pull up from 30 in your face. Very hard to guard his shot, being 7 feet tall, basically. I look at it and my 1 and 2 are LeBron and Larry Bird, but I want to say for KD to surpass Larry Bird, I don't think it's going to happen. He would obviously have to win a championship on his not on his own, but on his own team, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I think he's kind of stuck in his position, and like I said, I think Kawhi is going to climb, and I think Kawhi will probably overtake Kevin Durant as the third greatest small forward of all time. Number two, like I said, Larry Bird, Larry Legend. I love me some Larry Bird, man. Three-time champ, two-time Finals MVP, uh, a three-peater in the MVP, like John said, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, three-time All-Defensive Second Team, Rookie of the Year, won that over Magic, two-time 50, 40, 90 club, only 13 people in that club. Larry Bird was the first player to accomplish that feat, and he was the first person to do it back-to-back. Career stats 24 and 10 with 6.5 assists, almost 2 steals, 49% from the field, 38% from three, 89% from the free throw line. This guy personified calm, cool, and collected. And like you guys said about trash talk, I just want to read you this one quote from, I believe it was Dennis Rodman. Larry Bird was scared of no one, not even Dennis Rodman. During his years with the Detroit Pistons, Rodman recalls a time when Bird made 4 straight baskets on the worm and walked over to the Pistons head coach, Chuck Daly. Who's guarding me, Chuck? Is anyone guarding me? You better get someone on me or I'm going to go for 60. On the ensuing possession, Larry Legend continues to trash talk. Rodman recalls, I would be all over him trying to not deny him the ball, and all Larry was doing was yelling at his team, I'm open. Hurry up before they notice no one is guarding me. After knocking down another jumper on Rodman, Bird went over to Daly again, saying, Coach, you better get this guy out and send in somebody who's going to D me up because it's too easy when I'm wide open like this. And that's him talking about Dennis frickin' Rodman, who is arguably the greatest defender of all time. That Larry Bird didn't give a you know what, who the hell you were, because that man believed in his skill set and knew on his best you couldn't lace his jockstrap. I love this. I mean, the story about him going just for fun, going left-handed for almost a full game and dropping what 40 plus points. Again, yeah, he had to in the waning minutes go back to his right hand, but to even do that, to have the confidence to be like, you know what, I'm bored, bro. I'm going lefty this game, and to ball out like that is insane. Um, I he was the best shooter and best 3 point shooter of the 80s, in my opinion. And yeah, the 3 point shot wasn't as personified as it is now, but I do believe with his work ethic and his belief in himself and his shooting form, which was weird, but it worked for him. I believed he would have been one of the greatest 3 point shooters of all time if he played in today's era. I have no doubt in my mind he would have been able to produce given more opportunities from the 3 point line. And just a part of the dream team in '92. And one thing I just like to say, two more accomplishments he's had. Only person in NBA history to be named Rookie of the Year, MVP, Finals MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year. Class of his own. And cherry on top, the greatest white basketball player of all time. Number one, was it any question? The king, the chosen one, LeBron James. 4 time MVP, 4 time champ, 10 finals appearances. Freaking nature, just size, speed, athleticism, strength, grace. This guy was ambidextrous, which made him, along with those traits, one of probably the greatest driver of the basketball of all time. This guy is one of the greatest passers, has one of the highest basketball IQs in the game or of all time, whichever you want to take it. An incredible feel for the game. In his prime, could give you 30, 10, and 10 and play elite defense guarding 1 through 5. If he really wanted to, he could get down and dirty and guard that 5 position in his prime, obviously. For me, his crowning achievement was obviously beating the 73-9 Golden State Warriors, coming back from 3-1. First time it ever happened in NBA Finals history. And to just top it all off, dropping 41 in Game 6 and a 41-point triple dub in Game 7 with the block heard around the world on Iguodala. LeBron James is the greatest small forward of all time. So to recap, and then we can talk about it or whatever you guys want to do. Number 10, Paul Pierce. Number 9, Elgin Baylor. Number 8, John Havlicek. Number 7, Carmelo Anthony. Number 6, Kawhi Leonard. Number 5, Scottie Pippen. Number 4, Julius Erving. Number 3, Kevin Durant. Number 2, Larry Bird. And number 1, the King, LeBron James.
Justin, what was your top 10 list again? Just to hear the recap, not to make fun.
I'll make some adjustments on the way down. I'll go. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Number 10, Paul Pierce. Here's the adjustments.
Maybe I don't want to hear you, honestly.
Number 9, I'll go Carmelo Anthony. Number 8, I'll go the Claw. Number 7, I'll go Havlicek. Number 6, Elgin Baylor. Number 5, Scotty. Number 4, Dr. J. Number 3, KD. Number 2, Larry Legend. And the King at number 1.
No, it's you gotta have Kawhi.
I got burned at the stake by John.
Yeah. Kawhi might be number 2 all the time, and that's not. First off, Larry Legend. I was so caught up with the fact he won 3 straight MVPs. He's maybe the most underrated passer of all time. Those Celtics teams moved the ball with grace in a way that, look, it was so unselfish and so cerebral. We've never seen it quite like that since then. Bill Walton, Dennis Johnson, him, McHale. I mean, it was a work of art, seeing the way they can move the ball literally 4 feet inside. They constantly were, like my coach would always tell me, the ball in a pass moves way faster than you dribbling it. And those Celtics teams pushed the tempo by just moving the ball up the court. And teams in the 90s and 2000s tried to play like them with their ball movement. And it is one of the most influential squads of all time because of Larry Bird's greatness. So yeah, man, I think he's incredible. But Kawhi has a chance if he wins a title in Los Angeles to climb him up. Because Brent, like you said, here are the NBA players that have won an NBA championship on 3 different teams. There's a total of 4. There's LeBron, and then there's 3 role players. Would you guys be able to guess any of them? One of them's a 7-time NBA champ.
Oh, God, what was that guy's name?
Hip checked Steve Nash into the scores table. He hip checked Steve Nash into the scores table at kind of ended the Suns' chances. I think it was 2006 or 2007
I wouldn't
playoffs.
be able to guess. I wouldn't be able
Play
to
with Shaq and Kobe. Play in San Antonio.
Oh. Now that you say that, it rings a bell, but I can't freaking think of his name. Once you say it, I'm gonna know it.
Robert Horry.
Big shot.
Robert Horry, yeah.
Big shot. There you go. That's a big shot. Yeah, he had that crazy game winner that helped bring them to, I forget which year it was exactly, to the finals. The next 2 names, one of them is one of LeBron's former teammates that was traded with Kawhi to Toronto, and Danny Green. And John Sally is the last one. He got a championship his last year after playing overseas with the Lakers. And I think Kawhi with the 3rd title and the 3rd Finals MVP, if he can get to 8 All-NBA teams, he's at 6 right now, or 5. Yeah, I think he's going to have a case to be over KD with 2 more titles. And if he's got the same amount as Larry Legend, Larry didn't have longevity. So if Kawhi's an All-NBA player for a decade, All-NBA caliber, I think he's right there.
I have a hard time moving Larry Bird. I just think I have to keep Larry there. I have to.
I don't know. Those Celtics teams were so damn good. I mean, I think he gets a lot of credit, but he was playing 3 Hall of Famers some of those years. Technically 4 with Bill Walton.
LeBron didn't win a championship till he got 2 Hall of Famers. So
yeah,
I'm saying the same thing about every player. MJ didn't win till he got Scotty.
All right. So now we're moving on.
What you do with the talent in front of what you got. So
time for NBA Check It Up.
Check it up.
LeBron James made headlines this week in a pro-am injury. Not because he was the one getting injured at 37 years old. I saw this tweet. It was the 20-year-old Chet Holmgren that was trying to stop him defensively on a fast break. And Chet hurt his foot. And the pro-am game is stopped after because the court conditions weren't optimal. By the time people are watching this on, what day is that, Wednesday? Thursday morning, we're probably going to know the results of his test that he did to see the severity of the foot injury, but Shams is saying there's potential torn ligaments in his right foot. And what makes this so frustrating is that, look, Chet can win Rookie of the Year and make OKC an absolute joy to watch with Josh Giddey. And now he's hurt because of a pro-am game. Now, I'm not against NBA players playing in pro-am, but when it's not good court conditions, I certainly am. Because these are competitive games. You can get hurt in practice, you can get hurt training. But if I'm paying a draft pick, number 2 overall selection, this much money, Patrick Mahomes, he's not allowed to play in pickup basketball games with the amount of money he's making. Now it's about 50 times the amount that Chet's getting, or 30 times. But if you're playing competitive basketball in dusty court conditions where it's not safe at a certain point where the game has to be stopped, I'm totally against that. That is a risk that no NBA team should feel comfortable with, and I'm sure a lot of these teams are looking at this and saying, all these young guys, DeJounte Murray, Paulo playing these pro-ams, I'm like, what are they really getting? Like the Knicks played in a pro-am game, they got nothing out of it. There's BSing the entire time. There's actually the risk far more, like what you're going to get out of that pro-am game is nothing, but the risk of a potential injury is far more significant. And it's one thing if you're training, if you get hurt, you're actually getting better as a player when you're practicing and training. And that's why I said this pro-am stuff, look, it's fun and all, but dude, the NBA team's got to stop this. It's got to be perfect court conditions, quite frankly. I mean, the injury itself, I'm watching it now, it doesn't look like he stepped on LeBron's foot. It is kind of awkwardly landed right in reverse. The fact of the matter is, if I'm a front office, if I'm a GM, I'm not letting my players play in pro-am. Impatiently waiting for one of you to speak.
And that's the risk you take, when you play in these games. Then again, you say there's not much you can get out of it. I mean, when you're on the court with some of the best players in the world, I mean, there is stuff to gain from it. But I get it when the court conditions aren't optimal. You're not playing on an NBA floor. You don't have NBA trainers available to you at every given second. It's not the most optimal thing for you to do in the off season. So I get that. But people have been doing it for years, you know? This is nothing new.
But it's one thing if you're going to appear in these, if you're going to half a dozen games, I mean, it's at a certain point, you use the word optimal. I just don't think it's safe or necessary. Like, if you're training and you get hurt, I think that's a different thing. These NBA players are playing, but they're not actually competing at a high level. They're just going through the motions and showing off for the most part.
And that's when they say you usually get hurt is when you're playing half-assing it. You're not playing for, you're not being worried about your awareness is down, your guard is down, and not really the smartest decisions. Is that all you had to say on that, John, or you wanted to?
Yeah, I think it's stupid. It really is dumb.
So I just got two quick things. They're related to like the same person. But I'm calling out Mr. Oh God, what's his freaking name? Mad Dog Chris Russo. Since he joined First Take, I've enjoyed him. He's entertaining, obviously. But today he said some pretty stupid BS. First one was, I won't really knock him that hard for that one because people are just gonna say it just to say it. I've heard it from the Rob Parkers of the world. Keep going down the list of the Tom Brady deniers and haters and whatnot. But it's just like he's like at the end of the argument, he's just like, at some point it's got to happen. You're not going to continue playing at the highest level. Like at this point, like, bro, are you serious? Like, are we still questioning Tom Brady's ability to play? Like, who really? Like, come on. I don't really have to say that much more about it. It's just like, please shut up with the Tom Brady's not going to perform at the highest level of his ability. Just shut up because you continue to look wrong. See Max Kellerman. Second, this one really got me pissed off. They were debating, not really debating, but they were talking about the news that broke on Saturday night where Gronk and Dana White talked about how there was a deal done or close to being done for Brady and Gronk to go to not LA, Las Vegas. It kind of got switched because then Mad Dog started talking about how the UFC isn't a real sport. If you're a real sports fan, you shouldn't take that seriously. It's a stupid sport. Any real sports fan wouldn't watch that. Blah, 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 blah. You're going to watch guys kick for 5 minutes or whatever. And all I got to say, like to Chris, to Mad Dog is like, first off, you got some big ass balls to be saying that type of stuff on a network of ESPN that gave the UFC $1 billion deal. Might want to relax on that one, first off. Secondly, I don't know if he's a boxing fan or not, but I know boxing historians don't like to, give the UFC and MMA their credit because they think it's too brutal and hardcore. First off, in boxing, you're strictly going body head. You got two targets, and most of the time, it's your head. Do you not realize over the past couple of years, we have seen more deaths in boxing than we have in I don't even know how many years? And these are happening right after the event or in the ring. Like these are crazy events. UFC and MMA is not really having, maybe on the independencies, but on the mainstream stuff, it's not happening like that. It's not too brutal. It's the most beautiful art of fighting. This is fighting. Fighting is a sport. It takes real legit skill and technique to be a great fighter. Mad Dog, you want to talk crap about kicking? Go ahead and take a leg kick from Justin Gaethje and see if you're walking for the next 3 freaking weeks. Talk about kicking. How about you take a head kick from Leon Rocky Edwards and you tell me if you're going to get up after that? You'll be spending a week in a freaking hospital in a coma. Don't talk crap about these fighters. And I want to see Daniel Cormier, DC, who works for ESPN because he's byproduct of UFC. I want to see Anthony Smith, Lionheart Smith. I want to see these guys who are commentators, Joe Rogan, who are analysts on this sport. I want to see them step up on first take, face to face with Mad Dog, and talk about this UFC. That cannot fly. You cannot talk about that like you did on the network that represents UFC or about the sport in a whole, that it's not a sport, it's not legit, and any real sports fan doesn't bother with that because it's boring. You're an idiot, Mad Dog. All right, you're an idiot for saying that. Just first off, one thing this is the last thing I gotta say. These MMA fighters are not basketball players. They're not football players. They're not hockey players. They're not baseball players. They do not take this crap. Watch what you say about them because you see them in the hallway, you see them in the elevator, you see them on the street. You will get confronted. You will crap your pants and you will be put in your place. Just saying, these guys don't play those games. Show the respect that they deserve. All I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, a leg kick by Justin Gaethje doesn't seem like it'd feel good.
Would you do it for $1 billion?
No.
$1 billion? No. Yeah, I would do it for $1 billion.
Yeah, me too. I would take that.
If it's to the face, it'd be tougher. But if it's to the leg, yeah, I mean, $1 billion.
I could pay for
a lot of money.
Yeah.
You could take it. I won't.
I'll wrap up. I got 2 quick things. I know initially I said I didn't have anything, but baseball records mean a lot to every baseball fan out there. And I mentioned to you guys a couple weeks before about the MLB giving their love to, really just giving the flowers to Albert Pujols this past All-Star game. Albert Pujols has been on an absolute tear lately. And when we entered this season, when he signed back with the Cardinals, it almost, I kind of saw it happening the way Ken Griffey Jr.'s last season in Seattle was. It was played about 30 games and just walked off into the sunset in the middle of May and just wasn't to be spoken about. Alex Rodriguez's last year with the Yankees didn't finish off the season, just walked off into the sunset. Nobody ever gets to go out on their own terms or really go out with some glory. Albert Pujols right now has been on such a tear. He stands 7 home runs away from reaching the magical number 700. Alex Rodriguez retired with 696, and Albert Pujols right now, the tough part for him is he's more of a platoon DH, so he doesn't start every day. He doesn't get the opportunity to. But this season in St. Louis, his final ride there in Missouri, it has been nothing but magical. And now it's late August. We're going into September. Cardinals are fighting to win their division. Probably going to. There's so much more to this story to be written about Albert Pujols and what's left to come. I'm praying he reaches 700 because, man, there's not an athlete in the world that probably deserves that number more than him. What he has done for baseball on the field and off the field, it'll be just amazing for the sport. So everybody's rooting for this guy to stay hot. Let's go, machine. Let's keep it going. And then one last thing, since we spoke basketball today, yesterday was Kobe Bryant's birthday. So want to give love to Kobe Bean Bryant. It's crazy that it's been 2 years now, I believe, since he's passed away. One of my favorite players of all time. I don't have many NBA jerseys, but the ones that I do are from the players that I grew up loving the most. I have Paul Pierce in my closet. I have Wade. I have Melo, and I have a Kobe. I have that purple and gold. I absolutely needed it. So I just wanted to share the love and just say happy birthday to the Bean, man. That's it.
Happy birthday to the late great Kobe Bean Bryant. Gone way too soon. Rest in peace.
I wish this
That's all.
damn light wasn't ruining the Kobe poster in the background. My favorite player of all time. Obviously one of the most motivational athletes. And speaking of motivation, I'm going to cap off with Shauqem Griffin, the first one-handed player drafted in the modern NFL. He retired yesterday. I just want to say, I mean, playing football with one hand, as a linebacker or a defensive player, whatever the case may be, it sounds impossible. And today we see up-and-coming athletes, not just football, but even basketball, playing with one hand. And it's not only inspirational, but it is paving the way to show young athletes you can play at least a collegiate level if you have the physical gifts and all the other tools. And I think it's just one of the coolest things. Thank you for his career wasn't long, but I mean, the fact he was drafted, I mean, it is an incredible story by Shauqem. And there's one NBA collegiate prospect. His name is, I want to make sure I get his first name right. Hansel Emmanuel. That is one hand. Or one arm, excuse me, not even one hand. And he's up and coming at the collegiate level. So I want to say thank you to Shauqem Griffin. I think he's got an incredible story. But with all that being said, that is episode number 20 of the Wise Guys podcast. Thank you much for staying to the very end. And as always, we'll see you next time. Peace.